What happens when the script calls for a barn explosion, but you can't blow one up for real? How do you make a bunch of guys turn into big scary lizards? And what do you do when you're filming in the middle of the night and it drops to 5 degrees? Hello, my name is Brooke Hubbs and I did the visual effects work for A Hard Place. A Hard Place is a monster versus monster film, where a gang of criminals get caught up in the middle of an ancient feud. A Hard Place was a really fun shoot, and I got to be a part of it pretty early on as one of the camera operators on set. We shot the movie in Ohio in February, and man, that was an experience. And it got down to 5 degrees at like 1 in the morning on our first day of filming. I think that it bonded us together as a team right away. We only had a handful of actors to play the monsters, even though the script calls for basically 2 armies to fight each other. So with a little bit of clever shooting and editing, and a little bit of VFX, we were able to pull this movie off. So let's get right into it. The first few things that I had to do were pretty straightforward. Phones, TV screens, projector screens. We had a number of supporting roles that were filmed remotely, as well as the movie within a movie, which features a lot of zombie action. Which of course opens the film playing on the projector of the drive-in theater. And speaking of the drive-in, I also changed the name of the movie on the marquee. The drive-in theater scene was partially reshot, and we didn't have actress Lynn Lowry on set for the reshoot, so I had to composite her into a new background with footage that we had shot in Ohio. But speaking of little fixes, we also had a scene where, unfortunately, Ashley Undercuffler forgot to take out her hair tie, and so I had to remove that digitally. Thanks, Ashley. I'm kidding, it was fine. Speaking of erasing things, there's one particular shot towards the end of the film where one of the monsters attacks Kevin's character, Hurt. In the original footage, you could see it waiting in the doorway. And you could also see director Jay Horton and assistant camera Jeremy Norrie. So I had to erase the crew members and I had to erase the monster for the first portion of it until it lunges out. Guardians are the daytime creatures that inhabit what is referred to in the movie as the garden. Now, these guardians are plant-based creatures that are all female, and they prey on humans. But they're really like forest protectors. They're just not very nice about it. The guardians were mostly played by rather short stunt actresses, and when I say stunt actresses, I mean dance squad and our makeup artists. So we tried to shoot them from low angles and make them look bigger and scarier. All the suits were getting worn out really easily, so we decided in post-production to patch up a lot of the costumes, hide things like zippers, seams, any rips, little imperfections, and also hide the faces of the stunt actresses. Nothing against them, we just wanted it to look a little scarier. I tried to hide a lot of the faces with some kind of like plant overgrowth. Sometimes I'd keep their eyes. The Sylvian suit looked phenomenal. I felt that one thing could be a little bit creepier about this character. I thought maybe her eyes could glow when she gets angry or when she's like looking really far away. It makes her a little creepier. But wait a second, Brooke. You said this was a monster versus monster film. Where are the other monsters? I'll tell you. So our criminals run into the Guardians and then they get saved by a group known as the Caretakers. They turn into monsters themselves, although unlike the Forest Guardians, the Caretakers are more of a lizard type design. I think there was a problem where parts of the lizard suits got lost in transportation. Everyone did the best they could to just make them as good as possible on set. It was very glaring in post that a lot of the lizard costumes looked like Power Ranger enemies. So I just kind of used VFX to kind of fill that in, make it look more complete. As I block the light on myself, real professional. I got to do the transformation of the Caretakers into the lizard people. The transition from human to monster was all done with CGI, but almost as much time that went into patching up the costumes went into other more basic effects. There were no real guns used on the set of A Hard Place, but most of them looked pretty convincing, although a handful of rubber stunt guns did make their way into the foreground unexpectedly. And so for those, I did have to add a muzzle to the end of those digitally. And being that all the guns were fake, every time someone shoots, that had to be a muzzle flash and smoke, and there were lots and lots of people shooting guns. And this is probably the most gunshots I've ever done in one project. It was a whole lot. But in turn, anytime someone would get shot, then that would be an effect as well. We incorporated tons of practical effects with the blood, with the impacts, with lights going off, and then with VFX, I just took it to the next step best I could. There's a handful of really great shots that feature some pretty explosive damage that I'm pretty proud of. But despite hours and days and weeks spent on the gunshots and the blood and the patching of the suits, I did have a handful of money shots that I'm really excited to get into right now. We only had between 2 and 5 performers for the Guardians. We wanted to make it look like a whole army of them was invading the farm, so we needed to have a couple of big shots where you could see a lot of them. We wanted to get them all coming up over this hill together. They just came up this hill several times in a row. In post, I expanded the entire frame so that we could have this really big shot and do this really epic zoom out. And then I composited them all over this hill so you could see them all coming up. And I think in the end, I got 15 of them coming up in the frame. And that all leads to the big barn explosion. We didn't know what we were gonna do for this. I went around and I scanned the barn thinking maybe we could build it in 3D space. We got a few plate shots. While I was looking through drone footage, I found a few shots that I thought would work really great. And it's just an overhead shot and you see the flames coming up, and when you combine that with the plate shot, you get just multiple angles. It just feels bigger. I actually preferred the second shot, even though it didn't make it into the film. I probably spent triple the time working on that one. And there's a few shots where you see debris flying, and we had real debris that we were throwing. But the big moment right in there is Sylvian gets caught in the explosion. This was one shot where I just kind of went wild with it. Because when I got the plate, it was literally just Miranda screaming like this, and that was all it was. You see a bit of a shockwave go by, dust gets pushed off her skin, starts to melt her face, and you start to get that like peel back of skin, and you see the skeleton underneath, and one last time the eyes glow. And I feel like it was a very fitting part of the finale. There's so much work went into this film, and I'm very proud of it, and I think that audiences are gonna really enjoy the ride that you go on in this. So check out A Hard Place. It's now available. Someone at the premiere asked if there was going to be a sequel. While I don't know that for sure, I'd be down to be a part of it, as long as we shoot it somewhere warm. A warm place. I like that.